Hey everybody, it's Professor Miller. I wanted to talk a little bit about what you can expect for lab in fall 2020. So, we are going to be physically in lab for Chem 142. You're going to start right away, day one, by doing your independent experiment that's called the qual scheme. You'll find more information about that in a different video. So you should be prepared to begin working. You're going to need the same personal protective equipment that you used in the spring, so goggles, a lab coat or apron, and gloves. If you didn't collect your items at the end of the spring semester, we may have them. You need to send me an email in advance if possible. They might have also just been put aside because we had to clean out the drawers so people could use them this summer and in the fall. We do have some loaner materials if you have a difficult time finding these things, so please let me know. Preferably before the first day of lab if you can. So, and then in addition to that normal chemistry PPE, you're also going to need to have a mask. You're going to need to wear that whenever you're on campus. So they do have some to loan out if you need help with that as well. Or if your mask gets dirty or it gets broken or anything like that. So just let us know if you need help with that. Okay, so it's important to understand that we have very structured entrances and exits to the campus right now because of COVID and all this stuff that's going on. So I wanted to show you a little map. You can find this map on the MBCC website by just searching for map. I flip it over because that's kind of the way that the college is organized in my head. So here's Culver Avenue and then Sherman Drive. All right, and so the best places to park are going to be, you're going to go past the first 3 entrances on Sherman Drive. This is a sidewalk, not an entrance right here, but you're going to go past this one, that one. And then you're going to see, with a light right here, you're going to see this entrance. So you can come in the back right here. These are called the A lots. So you're going to park in one of these 2 areas. This is the building where we're going to be at for lab. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So what you'll have to do whenever you come to campus is you have to fill out the health screening form. They have an app for that. Make sure you've done that before you come to campus because sometimes the cellular data can take a little while. And then you're going to first, after you park, you're going to come over to ACC, which is a brick building past the academic building. So you kind of are going to go between our lab building and the academic building. And in ACC is where they're going to check you in. So you're going to get your temperature checked, and then you scan your student ID or give them your M number. So make sure you know your M number or your student ID, one of those 2 things. And then you show them the confirmation from the health screening, and you'll get a little paper bracelet that is a different color each day. So then after you've got the bracelet, you can go into any building on campus. This is where our lab is, and so as it turns out, the entrance to the building is the door that's farthest from ACC. So you're going to walk back out here, and you're going to go to this doorway here, and that's where you go in the building. And then once inside of the building, let me show you where our lab space is. Okay, you guys, so here is where you're going to come in. We're going to use a little rainbow here. So this is where you're going to check in first. And then you'll walk over the ST building, and you're coming into the building right here. Okay. Then you're going to walk into the building, and there will be a hallway with the bathrooms. So you're going to go right, and then you're going to go down this hallway. And we have 2 labs. We have one here and we have one here. And then the exit, when you're done for the day, is on this side of the building, closer to our labs. Okay? And so what you're going to do the first day is whoever arrives first is going to walk to sort of the closest point towards the exit. And you're going to notice there's some little Erlenmeyer flask stencils on the wall with numbers on them. Just stand at the next available number. So we're going to fill from the exit side of the building back up this way. So if you're the first person, you'll go closer over here, and the second goes here and here. And so those signs are placed 6 feet apart. And they are the way that we are going to set up our lab space, okay? So the first person in the building ends up being the farthest back in the lab space. And then we fill coming forward. So once I open the doors for you, you'll come into the room one at a time and leave your backpack on the hooks. Please don't put them on the ground. We need to keep the walkway clear. But all you need to get out of your backpack is your lab notebook, a pen or a pencil, any safety gear that you have to bring with you for the day. And then, of course, you need to have the procedure with you. That's normally going to be a textbook, but you might also need to print it off the internet, one way or the other. It's on our Blackboard site. So only those items will go with you, and you'll notice on the columns in the lab space, there are numbered spaces that match the signs outside in the hallway. So you're just going to look for the sign that matches the one you were standing next to and go to that space. And that's going to be where you're going to work for the entire semester. In kind of unusually, you're not allowed to move from that space. So you might have been used to moving around the lab during 141, and we're not going to be able to do that because it's a lot harder to keep everything clean if people are moving around too much. So if you are missing any items, or if you need tape or more water or whatever it might be, please ask the technician, Kate, or myself, to get it for you rather than go get it, okay? It's a little strange. We'll forget, we'll need reminders, and that's okay. But just try to stay at your space or the hood that we have assigned to you. Those are the 2 spots that you can go. You're going to have your own fume hood for Chem 142. You're going to use it a lot, and they're 6 feet wide, so you get your own. And that's kind of good news. That makes it easier. Something you should know is we have also improved our ventilation on campus, and also we leave all of our lab ventilation on the entire period. So all of the fume hoods and the room fans are going to be on. They are pretty loud, so I recommend buying a personal speaker if you can. So I got mine on Amazon, and it's just a little Wi-Fi speaker thing and a microphone. This will help you out a lot in lab because you're going to have questions for me, and it's really loud. So unless you're really good at projecting, shouting at me, you might find a speaker and microphone to be very helpful. I'll wear it so you can hear me better. Hopefully that helps a bit too. Okay. The other thing you can do is if you have prepared ahead of time and you know what's coming, or maybe you realized something during lab and you want to ask me questions during office hours, take advantage of that. It's far easier to communicate over Zoom than it is to do so in the lab. Okay, but sometimes I'm going to have to see what you're doing, and in that case, you can flag me down and shout at me so I can hear your questions, and then I'll look at your test tubes, and if I need to look at them and your notebook, I'll ask you to just move over so that I can get over there without, while still social distancing. Okay, so that's how we're going to handle that. The other, I don't know what my camera is doing. The other way for us to communicate during lab is I'm going to have PowerPoint slides up on the screen at the front of the room, and sometimes I'll write on the board if it's important topics. So make sure that you're checking those 2 places as well, kind of periodically. If you wear glasses, or, well, if you're nearsighted, I guess, if you have issues seeing things that are farther away, try to arrange yourself to be closer to the front of the room. That means you don't want to be the first few seats to line up. Okay? And so that's kind of the logistics. Hopefully it helps to answer some of your questions. As for what we're going to be doing on the first day, which might be Monday for some of you, or it might be Wednesday for others, you're going to First, clean your drawer. So there will only be one drawer unlocked. It's going to be kind of a wider drawer than you had for 141 because we have more stuff to fit. But you want to clean your drawer and make sure that the right chemical or the right glassware is in there. There should not be any chemicals. Hopefully we've cleaned those out already. But if there are, then I want you to please set them on your tray, maybe in a beaker if it's test tubes. And our technician will throw them out when you're done for the day. In order to be ready to start lab after you've cleaned your drawer, you have to read chapters 8 and 9 of the lab textbook. So I have put those on Blackboard for your reference. You can start them right away. When I say read, I don't just mean read the words, okay? You actually want to take some really good notes, maybe read a paragraph or two, and then try to summarize what you just read without looking back. See how much you can remember. These texts are very challenging to read. They're very technical. And so it does take a lot of time to understand what you're going to be doing when you get in there. But investing that time at home means that you're more likely to be able to complete the experiments during the lab. Okay? And so the qual scheme is structured so that you're graded on all of it, regardless how much you actually do. So you want to get as much of it done as you can. And so one way to do that is to study ahead of time. And another way to do it is to ensure that you start the experiments on the very first day of lab. Okay, so that means you've got to have your PPE and you've got to have read it before you get there. You also should review the safety video because there's going to be a quiz that you have to do before you can actually start the qual scheme. Okay. The other thing is I have a document that's called Lab Reading Assignment under the Start Here folder, and also in Module 4, in the Lab module. You're going to want to read that for each chapter. So if you scroll down past the first one, Chapter 9 is the first that you're going to do. But there's also important tips and tricks in Chapter 10 and 11, which is farther down in the document. So you might want to print that, bring it to lab. There's some pieces in there that are going to save you a ton of time if you're paying attention. So that's kind of like your tips and tricks sheet, so pay attention to it. It's also graded. Okay, so the reading assignments for Chapter 9 and 10 are graded, so you want to do those and submit them on Blackboard. During lab, if you need to, you can feel free to go take a short break, 5-10 minutes. I recommend going outside and standing well away from anybody, and maybe you can take your mask off in that situation, but try to minimize the breaks and try to plan them carefully. And the other thing you need to plan carefully is cleanup time. You should budget about 10 or 15 minutes, depending on how much stuff you've got out, at the end of lab. So if our lab goes from 10:10 to 1:15, then about 1 o'clock, you want to start planning for cleaning up. You also need to look at where you're going to be at in the procedure. Some of the steps you don't want to stop in the middle, so you might have to stop a little earlier than 1:15 in order to not be stuck in the middle of something like a heating cycle or a redox reaction or anything like that. You want to kind of pay attention to where stopping makes sense. Okay, and so there is a schedule up there for you. It gives you an idea of what to expect. You're going to vary from that depending on what happens in lab. That's okay. Our deadlines aren't hard for the qual scheme. They're just guidelines to help you stay on track. For me, if you turn in your qual scheme sheets ahead of time, your reactions and your questions on the back, we can talk about them and you get a chance to fix them. But that's only if you're not waiting until the very end of the semester. If I'm getting everything at the end of the semester, then there's not enough time to do that. So plan ahead for that too. Okay, so that's about it for lab, and I hope that it's a really good experience for you. A lot of people really like this because it's independent and it teaches critical thinking, and this is what real chemists do. So hopefully you enjoy it. It can be frustrating, but it's also kind of fun. When you're frustrated, you're learning.